A second item that was brought in with the recent legislation is this personnel records retaliation. In relatively simple terms, what this does is specifies that among the various unnamed actions that constitute retaliation against someone who has raised a claim of discrimination or otherwise participated in some process to attempt to resolve claims of discrimination, you, or I should say, employers now may not disclose an employee's personnel file because that person engaged in some sort of protected activity with respect to the employment discrimination laws. There is a limited exception for disclosure required in legal proceedings. So obviously, if an employee sues the employer claiming harassment, and as part of discovery in the case, they request the personnel file, then the employer may turn over the personnel file without violating this new retaliation provision. This obviously relates to some situations where individuals have claimed that they were harassed or discriminated against, and the employer, through some agent or another, whether expressly or by some form of leak, has identified information in the employee's personnel files to attempt to discredit in some way the claims made by this employee. So this provision will certainly deter employers from engaging in that activity going forward. And if they do it, it may result in a separate retaliation claim. There is some reason to be concerned that this provision could be interpreted over broadly to essentially tie any employer's hands in their attempt to rebut claims by employees outside of court. In other words, it could certainly come into play in the situation where a company is asked to provide a reference for a former employee who has filed a claim against that company, arguably even providing dates of employment, for example, could constitute disclosing personnel files, as it's not entirely clear how far that term will be interpreted, but certainly any documents that would be put forth an effort to show that the person's claims are not accurate would seemingly violate this provision.